Have you ever paused mid-morning, looked in the mirror and asked yourself, why am I doing this? Why does this routine, this safe choice, this familiar pattern feel empty? You went through school, you took the job, you got the results that looked good on paper, yet inside, a voice whispers, is this really enough? We live in a culture that praises the good enough. A diploma, a stable job, a relationship that doesn't burn down, but neither does it ignite. We're told to aim for success, but success has quietly been redefined to mean adequate, satisfactory, comfortable. And that redefinition hides a cost, a hidden cost of good enough living. Today, we will explore that cost. We'll reach into the heart of why settling for good enough may feel safe, but is secretly draining you, whispering into your mind, you are becoming invisible to yourself. And we'll draw on the thinking of Michael Sandel, who asks, what does it mean to live a good life, and how much of our life is masquerading as good enough? The allure of good enough begins with a confession. You see others chase big dreams, risk failure, shine bright, and you took another route. A safer route. You picked comfort. You picked the path where the stakes seem low. Where praise is easier. Where the fear of failure doesn't loom quite as large. Because you tell yourself, maybe I'll shine later. Maybe when the timing is right. So you settle, for a job that pays, for a routine that works, for the version of your life that's presentable. But what you may not see is that settle isn't neutral. It gradually rearranges your inner compass. It makes the urgent whisper of your potential fade into a faint background hum. It puts a price tag on your inner life, and the price is your authenticity. You start to believe that good enough means this is who I am. The hidden price tag, here comes the cost. First, your energy. The things that once excited you start feeling like chores. You wake up less curious. You stop asking why and default to how. You execute rather than create. You trade wild possibility for safe reliability. Second, your identity begins to shrink. When you don't push, stretch, challenge yourself, you freeze into a version of yourself someone else designed. You become the person who picked the safe route. Not the person you might have become. Michael Sandel asks, when we accept good enough, are we implicitly accepting someone else's version of the good life? Because good enough is often externally defined, by society, by culture, by peers, rather than internally chosen. And that dislocation costs meaning. Third, your sense of time shifts. You tell yourself you're in between, waiting for the moment you'll step up. But that waiting may last years. Good enough living becomes a trap of suspended becoming. You aren't becoming, you're merely maintaining. And maintenance is energy born of fear. Fear of failing, fear of showing up, fear of losing what you already have. So you sit on the shelf of good enough and watch life move past you. The shadow of comfort. Let's dig deeper. Comfort is seductive because it conceals the fact that you're shrinking. You're shrinking because you stop learning. Because you stop risking. Because growth has risk built into it. And risk is loud, failure, embarrassment, change. So comfort silences you. It whispers, stay here. It's safe. But safety is not the same as flourishing. Michael Sandel's critique of meritocracy and market values asks us, do we value comfort because we've confused comfort with accomplishment? We've traded purpose for ease. In that exchange something vital dies, the sense that you're alive. The comparative trap. Another element, when you live good enough, you look around and see others who didn't settle. They took bigger leaps. They took bigger risks. And you feel two things, a pang of envy, and a whisper of shame. Because you wish you had that courage, and you wonder if that person would choose you. That comparative gaze slowly corrodes your inner worth. You define yourself not by your own journey, but by someone else's highlight reel. You sell your possibilities short because you assume someone else already took them. Part of what Sandel highlights is this: in a society obsessed with performance and credentials, our value becomes measured externally. And when you accept good enough, the external measure shrinks with you. The silent discontent. You wake up one day and realize, everything is working, professionally, socially, yet you're not, well. You guard an internal emptiness with an external, all good. You avoid the deep question, what if this isn't what I was meant to do? You suppress the loss of time, energy, creative spirit. The hidden cost isn't obvious, it's the gradual erosion of your internal voice while you maintain the external script. Over time you may feel resentment, not toward others, but toward yourself. Because you apologized for your ambitions, you minimized your drive, you dimmed your light. And now you sense a smaller life because you lived one. That's the cost of good enough living. Reclaiming your inner currency. Now here's the turnaround, to refuse good enough is not about reckless ambition. It's about reclaiming your inner currency, your time, your attention, your creative force. Michael Sandel's question, what are the goods we value that money cannot buy? Similarly, what are the goods your good enough life gives up that no paycheck can restore? You begin by asking, what if I lived a life defined from within, not from without? You ask, what if I measured success in terms of meaning, not margin? You choose depth over breadth, growth over stability, authenticity over acceptable. The hidden return. When you start making choices aligned with your deeper self, something shifts. Your energy returns. Your voice returns. Your sense of time, no longer a countdown but a canvas. You're no longer preserving what you have, you're creating what you will have. The hidden cost of good enough living becomes your greatest educator, you now understand what you gave up. And you reclaim it. Ending, so here's your call, if you're living good enough and feeling less than you ought to feel, you have permission now to wake up. You have permission to ask the bigger question. You have permission to stop settling, not out of greed, but out of fidelity to who you are. Examine the cost. Then pay the price of freedom. Then build the life you were meant to live. Because good enough is not a destination. It's a disguised limitation. You were made for more.